Hi, I'm Amy at EuroluxHome.com. Welcome back to our historical overview of the styles of European antique furniture. If you have enjoyed this series, remember to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and maybe even share it with a friend who might also enjoy learning about European antiques. So today we're talking about mid-century modern, and that's the period of time from the 1940s to the 1960s. Behind me is a gorgeous mid-century modern sideboard. But in order for you to have an understanding of what this style is about, we need to turn and look back at the previous style. And I do encourage you to go watch our video about the Art Deco style, which runs from the 1920s to the 1930s. It's sandwiched right between the two world wars. And it's all about technology, cars and planes and trains, and this idea of speed and velocity really influenced the style. And it's all about man's optimism and the belief in progress, that technology is here and it's helping usher us into the modern world. So then we have another world catastrophic event. World War II happens between 1939 and 1945. It was sparked by the aggressive expansionist policies of Germany, Italy, and Japan. And it was ultimately begun when Germany invaded Poland. Ultimately, it involved 30 countries, and if we add up all the casualties of military and civilians, it's estimated between 70 to 85 million people died. It was actually 3 to 4% of the entire world population at the time. It is considered the most deadly war, and it's just second after the Black Death or the bubonic plague in the 14th century as far as catastrophic world events. So you can imagine that it had a fundamental impact on society and culture. And as we come out of World War II, we're now in the atomic age, because the two standing powers, the two superpowers in the world, are now the US and Russia. And this begins the Cold War, the standoff between these two countries. But in order for us to have a greater understanding of styles, we've talked about that art and architecture and the decorative arts are always a reflection of what is happening culturally in a society. So mid-century modernism, let's break that down. Mid-century, that's 1940s to 1960s. And then modernism. So we talked a little bit about what modernism was in our last Art Deco video, but let's recap that so we have a better understanding, since this is what the style is all about. So first, in modernism, we have a rejection of all things traditional. Traditional methods, whatever had been standing before, we now want something new. And there's also this idea of fragmentation, which you can understand coming out of World War II, that people felt society, that the world had collapsed, that it was fragmented. So let's talk about art. And we've talked about that modern art has several subsets under the category, the umbrella of modern art. And in our last Art Deco video, we talked about Cubism under Pablo Picasso. So I'd like to start here, and we'll put up Pablo Picasso's Guernica up next to me. And that work of art is an abstract art, and it's thought that abstract art is actually able to better communicate the deeper universal truths rather than the previous, how art used to be, right? So Guernica looks totally different than traditional art, how art used to look, trying to make things look realistic. Now we have the idea of different perspectives, so everything is kind of fractured in the painting. And Guernica is thought to really represent Picasso's emotional response to World War II, that it was about the atrocities of the war and about just the disillusionment that people were feeling in the face of human cruelty. When you really understand what humans can do to other humans, the cruelty, in war. It really left a lot of people with this sense of alienation that you really don't even know. You can't ever know another person, that you're just alone in this world. You only have yourself, and it's hard to get a sense of what's going on around you. And so this idea is expressed in Guernica, but you also have to understand that when we talk about a philosophical angle of what's going on culturally, this is when existentialism is happening. So you have philosophers like Nietzsche or Sartre who are really questioning the meaning of life. What is life about, right? We just came out of this catastrophic world event where we had 85 million people may have died. And so you're really questioning, what is life about? What is the meaning of life? And under existentialism, it's thought that really there is no inherent meaning to life. And ultimately, it's up to the individual to create meaning in life by becoming their authentic self. And so these ideas filter into art. So we've had the idea rejecting the traditional, this idea of fragmentation, and now I'd like to put up Jackson Pollock's piece that shows you abstract expressionism. So this is another modern art movement under the umbrella of modernism, abstract expressionism. And again, this maybe looks completely different from any art that we've seen before. It does look very fragmented, but it's the thought behind this painting is that it is individual expression, individual creativity. So if we talk more about some more hallmarks of what modernism is, we have the idea of subjectivity, that when you look at art, you are actually seeing the internal world of the artist. And so here with Jackson Pollock's work, you can get the idea that you are actually seeing his emotions as he's flinging the paint onto the canvas. And another aspect of modernism is experimentation leading to innovation. So here Jackson Pollock is doing something totally different, right? He's taking paint and just flinging it at the canvas. Sometimes he's called a drip artist, sometimes it's called gestural painting, where he's actually in the moment of creation expressing his emotions onto the canvas. And so you see that we've never seen art like this before. And more than just a different method of art, it's actually questioning what is art? Is this beautiful? What it is the spontaneous creation of art. You are actually seeing the splatters of the paint. So that's what the art is the creation, the spontaneous creation of it. And you as the viewer is participating in that subjective expression of the artist. So we've talked about art then, but as we continue talking about this modernism, this philosophical context behind society, we not only are throwing out the old, trying new things, looking internally, but we're also emphasizing the new and especially technology. And that's a continuation of a trend that we saw under Art Deco. So now we've talked about modern art, let's talk a little bit more about architecture so we can see how these ideas are reflected in architecture. And in order to talk about the mid-century modern style, we need to mention the Bauhaus movement. Bauhaus was an art school that was established by Walter Gropius in Germany. And in a way to understand it is that it's the arts and crafts movement combined with modernism. So go back and watch our arts and crafts video. It's all about the act of creation, and things are streamlined and simple. But now we're adding in the modernism, the new materials, the innovation, the trying experimentation, trying new things. And it's a new approach to design. So Gropius wanted, under the Bauhaus movement, to unify art, craft, and technology. So art being painting and sculpture, and craft being the decorative arts like furniture or jewelry or textiles, and uniting them all into one cohesive look. Now, he hired very famous faculty, famous modern artists such as Kandinsky and Klee. And when you look at their art, you see that their art is all about breaking things down to the fundamental geometric shapes. And that, by extension, we see that in the architecture that's built at this time in the 40s to the 60s. And especially, there is no ornamentation. It's just all about simplicity and functionality. So another style we need to mention is the international style. It's the architecture of the machine age, and if we want to pen one word to describe it, it would be minimalism. And what's new about this style, this international style, is a blurring of the line between inside and outside. And so you begin to have buildings that have great big huge glass walls, and the windows just become the walls, so that whether you're inside or outside, it becomes difficult to, are you inside the building or are you outside the building? And the way that they're able to do this is by the use of modern materials, so glass and steel, metal, concrete, and it's stripped down. There's no ornamentation. Now this style, the international style, it's called the international style because it's spread internationally. Throughout Europe, we have the countries rebuilding after World War II, so they're rebuilding. In the US, we have a booming post-war economy. And so as you look around, I think still in any city you go to today, you'll see this international style. It looks like the downtown of most cities, these great big buildings, all glass and metal frames. Now, another influence that we need to discuss in order to have an understanding of mid-century modern style is that people were also interested in Scandinavian design at this time. So this is the design coming out of Norway and Denmark and Sweden. And it's all about the same things: simplicity, functionality, minimalism. But when it comes from Scandinavia, they are also throwing in the natural materials, so a lot of wood instead of all glass and steel and metal. So they're throwing in wood, but the wood is very light in color, and they prefer very light walls, like white walls or white upholstery or very neutral colors. And it's because the winters are very, very dark up in Scandinavia, so it makes sense that they would like light color interiors to bring light into their homes. Now, a fundamental aspect of Scandinavian design is a belief that home goods should be affordable and accessible for all people. And so they greatly embrace this idea of mass production, which drops the price of furniture and home goods. And our result today is IKEA. That is Scandinavian design focused on making home goods and furniture affordable and accessible to everyone. So we talked about, so those are the influences that we have to consider going on in society in order to understand mid-century modern style. But we talked about, as we came out of World War II, that this was now the atomic age. We had our two world superpowers, the US and Russia, in a stalemate standing off in the Cold War. And at this time begins the space race. So the US and Russia are both trying to get to the moon, trying to get to Mars, trying to get to outer space. And this is the same time that the television is now found in almost every house in America. So with this big economic boom after the war, everyone's building houses and they're buying televisions. And we had a very influential television show called The Jetsons in the early 1960s that shows your typical American family in the future. They're flying cars to work, and they have a robot maid who cleans the house. house, and Judy just pushes a button and out pops dinner. And so this futuristic focus becomes reflected in the style. And we also have Star Trek is on TV now too, so space exploration, a great focus on space travel and jets, and we still have cars that look like something futuristic. So the architectural style that reflects this atomic age or this space race is called Gucci, and it developed in Southern California. And while on the whole, mid-century modernism is about minimalism, this is the maximalism part of mid-century modern. And as a maximalist girl, this is the part I love. So we have futuristic forms. The style developed because there was a coffee shop named Gucci's that had kind of a bit of a bizarre looking roof line. And so it was a derogatory term that encompassed this new architecture that people were building that had these big, huge, futuristic roof lines, this upswing in roofs and bold angles and boomerang shapes in the buildings. It gave this sense of motion and speed and futurism. And even if we look at the Jetsons' house in the series The Jetsons, it's Gucci architecture. But it was for the common man because gas stations and restaurants and coffee shops and hotels were all built in this Gucci style. And it really captured your attention. It was able to be done through the use of new materials such as plastics and composites. And they're able to make these great big huge signs like the sign leading into Las Vegas downtown. You see use of atomic motifs and molecular patterns, starburst designs and clocks. It's very fun and playful, and there's a lot of bright colors. So that kind of brings it all together, are the influences behind mid-century modern. So let's talk about the actual hallmarks of the style, so that if you are out antiquing and you see a piece like this piece behind me, you'll be able to identify, aha, that is mid-century modern. So I'll just preference by saying that this is the post-war suburbanization. So people are moving out of the cities, they're building homes out in the suburbs. We have a lot of women working now in the workforce. And as they're building these new homes, this indoor-outdoor concept with an open floor plan becomes to the forefront. And we still see this today. We see whole walls made of glass or big stained glass doors, big windows that flow in between the indoor and the outdoor. We still have the rejection of the old and embracing the new. I'll show you a picture of the marshmallow sofa. Definitely looks outer space. And the ball chair, questioning, what should a chair look like? We still have a focus on simplicity and functionality and a streamlined aesthetic. Here we have the egg chair. You see, it really has this dynamic swoop to the top of it. Looks very streamlined. Minimalism is still part of the story. So this piece behind me, we have just very clean, simple, straight lines, very sleek. And there's really no decoration, no ornamentation, not even the hardware, just very, very simple. We have, for instance, the Wasili chair or a chase lounge. And these are being made in new materials, metal, vinyl, plywood, plexiglass, plastic, fiberglass. All kinds of new materials are enabling designers to make new shapes of furniture. But the most famous, that is most closely associated with mid-century modern, is the Eames lounger. And that was their luxury good. It uses molded cushions and plywood and metal. It is really synonymous with the mid-century modern style. But more pervasive is the Eames chair. And that, surprisingly, it was actually an entry for an international competition for low-cost furniture. And it became probably the biggest influence on mid-century modern. If you're a little older like me, you grew up with these chairs everywhere. They were mass-produced for a booming economy, and they were very inexpensive, so lots of people could buy them. They have these metal legs that look like they're kind of out of space, and the chair itself is molded plastic, and it can come in lots of different colors: yellows, blues, reds, greens, tangerine, to give you that pop of color. Because still part of this style, even though ultimately it's very streamlined and you really have a focus on minimalism, there is that little joyful pop of color in mid-century modern, and that shows the optimism that is still there. As we came out of the Art Deco style, people thought that the modern world had arrived, and it had arrived on the wings of technology. And we still have this pervasive sense of optimism and the belief in progress, that things are going to get better, the world is going to get better, and mankind will thrive and flourish. So that is what the mid-century modern style is all about. I hope that you have enjoyed learning about it. If I can answer any additional questions, please feel free to reach out. Remember to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and maybe even share it with a friend who might also enjoy learning about European antiques. See you next time.